Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Canto 4, Chapter 20, text number 9. Yaswadharmena mam nityam nirashi shadayanvita bhajate shanakestasya Manorajan prasidati Yaswadharmena mam nityam Nirashi shadayanvita Bhajate shanakestasya Manorajan prasidati Yaswadharmena mam nityam Nirashay shadayanvita Bhajate shanakestasya Manorajan prasidati Yaswadharmena mam nityam Nirashay shadayanvita Bhajate shanakestasya Manorajan prasidati. Yaswadharmena mam nityam Nirashay shadayanvita Bhajate shanakestasya Manorajan prasidati. Yaswadharmena mam nityam Nirashi shadayanvita Bhajate shanakestasya Manorajan prasidati. Yaswadharmena mam nityam Nirashi shadayanvita Bhajate shanakestasya Manorajan prasidati. Ladies. Yaswadharmena Vishwasya Vishwadhyamvikaha Bhajate Shanakestasya Manorajan Prasidati. Anyone else? Okay, word for word. Ya, anyone who? Swadharmena, by his occupational duties. Mam, me. Nityam, regularly. Nirashihi, without any motive. Shraddhaya, with faith and devotion. Anvitaha, endowed. Bhajate, worships. Shanake, gradually. Tasya, his. Mana, mind. Rajan, O King Prithu. Prasidati, becomes fully satisfied. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Ki Jai. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, continued, My dear King Prithu, when one situated in his occupational duty engages in my loving service without motive for material gain, he gradually becomes very satisfied with it. This verse is also confirmed by the Vishnu Puran. Occupational duties are known as Varnashram Dharma and apply to the four divisions of material and spiritual life, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, and Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas. If one works according to the Varnashram Dharma system and does not desire fruitive results, he gets satisfaction gradually. Discharging one's occupational duty as a means of rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. Bhagavad Gita confirms this as the process of karma yoga. In other words, we should act only for the satisfaction and service of the Lord. Otherwise, we will be entangled by the resultant actions. Everyone is situated in his occupational duty, but the purpose of material occupations should not be material gain. Rather, everyone should offer the results of his occupational activities. A Brahmana especially should execute his occupational duties not for material gain, but to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra should work in a similar way. In this material world, everyone is engaged in various professional and occupational duties, but the purpose of such activities should be to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devotional service is very simple, and anyone can adopt it. Let one remain what he is. He need only install the deity of the Supreme Lord in his house. The deity may be Radha Krishna or Lakshmi Narayan. There are many other forms of the Lord. In this way, a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra can worship the deity with the results of his honest labor. Regardless of one's occupational duty, one should adopt the devotional means of hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, offering everything to the Lord, and engaging in his service. In this way, one can very easily engage himself in the service of the Lord. When the Lord is pleased with one's service, one's mission in life is fulfilled. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadaimayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamascha He Krishna Kurana Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gupka Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripasindhubheva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Kadam Kanana Swami Niti Namne Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Gurudasa Chidvaita Swami Niti Namne Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shabbat ki jai. Thank you everyone for joining. And so just as a recap, we are reading from Canto 4. And the chapter we're on is 20, which is entitled Lord Vishnu's Appearance in the Sacrificial Arena. So this canto is a very interesting canto because actually what it's doing is showing us progression of devotion in the three modes of ignorance, passion and goodness, and then eventually gives us how to practice devotion in the mode of pure goodness. At the beginning of the canto we hear of the pastime of Shiva, Satya and Daksha, where, it's the mic right? Is it too much? Where Daksha is practicing devotion in the mode of ignorance because actually, even though he's performing so many sacrifices, he's performing so many austerities, he's actually very envious of Shiva. Then we see Dhruva Maharaj practicing devotion in the mode of passion, where he's desiring, he's practicing, he's gone to the forest to perform austerities in order to attain a kingdom greater than Brahma. And then in these few chapters we hear about Prithu Maharaj, who, as we know, is the Shaktavesha avatar, is the empowered incarnation of the Lord, who is practicing or is showcasing how to practice devotion in the mode of goodness and then pure goodness. And we hear about his ideal leadership, his ideal kingdom, how he rules the kingdom with such expertise. In the previous chapters we also hear about how, as part of his ideal kingship, he chases Mother Earth, who is in the form of a cow, because she's concealing all of her resources. She's not giving her resources, even though the kingdom rightfully and the residents rightfully should be able to receive them. And then in the previous chapter, I think, we hear about, oh, it's not in this book. In the previous chapter, we hear about how Prithu Maharaj is going on an adventure of performing 100 horse sacrifices. And whenever somebody tries to do 100 horse sacrifice, there's one person who is always there, ready to stop them, and that is Indra, Lord Indra, because he's scared, oh my gosh, Prithu Maharaj is going to perform 100 horse sacrifices, but if he completes it, then he'll become even more powerful than me, and then what will happen to my position as the king of heaven? And so we hear about how through his shenanigans, he tries again and again to stop Prithu Maharaj from completing 100 horse sacrifices. He's at the 99th, and the 100th, it just doesn't happen. And at the end of the previous chapter, we hear about how Lord Brahma comes. Lord Brahma comes and tells Prithu Maharaj that, look, we know Indra is not doing the right thing. He's envious. He's scared of his position. He doesn't know how to properly behave. But Prithu, you are an ideal devotee. You're an ideal ruler. You should act with the maturity, and you should showcase that it does not matter. Indra is doing his thing, but actually the mature position is accepting that this is the Lord's desire and humbly just accepting the situation. And so through Brahma's counsel, Prithu Maharaj actually, even though he was qualified, even though he was rightfully somebody who would be responsible for the entire universe, Prithu Maharaj accepted the humble position. He accepted the fact that in order to avoid offending Indra, who's already envious of him, let me not perform, not keep endeavoring for the 100th sacrifice. Let me just gracefully accept that I've performed 99. Materially, that feels very bad, very poor, because, oh my gosh, he's not completed 100. 100 cricket comes to mind. Century, imagine you're at 99, but you didn't reach the 100. Some people will feel so sad, but 99 now out is better than 100 out. And what do we see happens spiritually in this chapter, the very beginning of this chapter? We see that Lord Vishnu comes because he is pleased that Prithu Maharaj didn't keep endeavoring for the 100th horse sacrifice. Because Prithu Maharaj stopped, actually, even though materially he didn't get what he was meant to, spiritually he got everything because the Lord himself came and gave him darshan. And with Lord Vishnu came Indra, as we know time and time again. Indra is very scared of coming alone and apologizing, so he comes this time with Vishnu, and so on and so forth. And then we come to this verse 9, text 9. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu continued, "My dear King Prithu, when one situated in his occupational duty engages in my loving service without motive for material gain, he gradually becomes very satisfied within." If we took a whiteboard or a chalkboard to the middle of New York, to any of the book distribution places we go to, and a massive board, and in the middle we asked the question, what is the goal of life? And we had pens or post-it notes and invited people to come and write down what is their goal of life. Some people would write climbing the career ladder. Some people would write happiness. Some people will write having a nice family. Some people will write contributing to society. So many different things will come up. And these are all valid. These are all valid because they all pertain to human needs, actually. Human needs on a material level are psychological needs, emotional needs, physical needs, intellectual needs, social needs. All these different needs get satisfied by all these different human aspirations. And when we turn to Vedic literature, when we turn to Vedic culture, none of these needs are rejected. But time and time again, repeatedly, we hear that actually, even though we've got all these human needs, there's a need that is greater and deeper than all of these. And that we know is a spiritual need, a need to connect our heart to Krishna. And the way the Vedic literature teaches us and shows us how to fulfill all of our needs is by going to the Varnashram system, as is mentioned in this verse, and Prabhupada talks about. The Varnashram system oftentimes is understood to just be a material framework that has been created. But in the Bhagavad Gita, we see that Krishna has actually created this Varnashram system as a means to fulfill material and spiritual needs. What is the Varnashram system? So we know there's the four Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or the teachers of society, the leaders of society, the creators of society, and the supporters or the workers of society. And these are our material situations. But then Srila Prabhupada talks about that actually there's the spiritual side of it, which is the four stages of the Varnashram system, which is the Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. Brahmacharya is what? Student life, where one is cultivating knowledge, where one is living amongst devotees, other students, and learning about how to live life, learning about how to live a spiritual life. Then you've got Grihastha, where it's family life, married life, where people come together. Instead of living in a temple, they live in a home, and then they're practicing serving devotees, serving deities, looking after the other ashrams. Then you've got Vanaprastha, which is like retiring life, where one is giving up the enjoyment of family life, giving up the comforts of home, family, friends, and going deeper in their spiritual practice. And then you've got sannyas, which is retired life, where one has completely given up the idea of any material association whatsoever. And we see that actually the Varnashram system is designed in such a perfect way that it supports and fulfills the material needs. It gives us the stability based on the stage we're at, based on the psychological needs we have. We're perfectly situated materially in such a way that we can progress spiritually. And what is that spiritual progression? What is that goal of spiritual progression that we're after? Sarve pumsam paro dharma yato bhaktira dokshaje ahoitaki aprati hata yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation of humanity, of every living entity, of every living entity that has consciousness and even no consciousness actually, or very little consciousness rather, is what? Sarve pumsam paro dharma yato bhaktir adokshaja, is to perform bhakti, is to perform devotional service onto adokshaja, the absolute truth, the supreme person, Krishna. And so we see that the goal of life is not to arrange our material situation. It's not to arrange a material life that we can be comfortable and happy in. But rather it's to use our material situation to connect spiritually, to go deeper in our own Krishna consciousness, our spiritual life. It's to cultivate that eternal loving service towards Krishna. In various scriptures, like even the Mahabharata calls this out, the Kama Sutra, the Manusmriti, all these different scriptures that pertain to the material world, that pertain to the three modes of nature. They talk about there being, I forgot what the term is now, Purusha Artha, I think it's called, the four goals of human life. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Dharma means religiosity, Artha means economic development, Kama means enjoyment, and Moksha means liberation. But the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita says that, yes, those are there, but actually there's a fifth goal which is even higher. And Mahaprabhu calls it, if I remember it correctly, Prema something Mahan. Prema Partham. Prema Parartha Mahan. Prema, or more specifically Prema Bhakti, this idea of loving devotion to Krishna, is the highest goal because it's actually a spiritual goal. It's not going to end with the body. And so where a lot of the world is chasing after dharma, artha, kama, moksha, one who's a devotee, one who's actually taking shelter of Krishna, who recognizes that actually there's something beyond these four, is on the path to taking shelter of prema bhakti, of loving devotion to Krishna. And so the Varnashram system actually gives us the material stability such that we can endeavor in that prema bhakti. When we look at brahmacharya life, we see it's student life, where you live in a temple, where actually the Varnashram system, before going there, the Varnashram system is actually a system where one is taking responsibility in society whilst endeavoring spiritually. Brahmacharyas take responsibility by serving the guru, by serving the ashram or the temple they're staying in. And it's not that it's just about responsibility. They get their needs fulfilled in that situation through brotherhood or sisterhood, through the community or the camaraderie that exists amongst the students. They get to study and learn the scriptures and go deep in their connection with Krishna. And ultimately, all of that is there to help them endeavor towards spiritual life. And then, of course, there's a sense of adventure that brahmacharis actually have, and brahmacharinis also have. In the Krishna book, we hear about how Krishna also accepts brahmacharya life. He goes to the ashram of Sandipuni Muni, and there, with his friends, with Sudama, etc., they're serving the temple, serving the guru, but they're enjoying. And one amazing adventure, some of us may not consider it an adventure, but one amazing adventure that Sudama and Krishna have is when their guru sends them to go and collect logs. They go collect logs, and then it starts raining profusely. And the way to go back to the ashram is no longer seen because it's raining so heavily. So they end up spending the night outside of the ashram, in the middle of the forest, just Sudama and Krishna. And in the mornings, Sandipuni Muni comes and goes like, or wakes up and is like, where are my boys? Where are my sons? Where are my students? We sent them to collect the logs last night, but they haven't returned. So then he goes and tries to find them. And they're just happily there, enjoying each other's company, waiting for the rain to subside, lost, but happy in each other's company because it's a sense of adventure. In modern context, the sense of adventure would be going out, book distribution, preaching, not knowing who you're going to speak to, not knowing who's going to be receptive, who's going to be envious. But it's together in that community. That's brahmacharya, taking responsibility of serving the guru, the ashram, but then enjoying, and also endeavoring for spiritual life through studies, through developing good character. Then you've got grihastha, where the responsibility of the grihastha is to take care of each other, to serve the deities. And beyond that is also to take care of the other ashrams. The grihastha ashram is the only ashram where one is allowed to work and earn money. And so financially, they take responsibility of brahmacharis, vanaprasts, sannyasis. What's their enjoyment? How are their human needs being met? Well, through family life, you've got the affection, you've got the loving exchanges, you've got the humor, you've got the jokes, you've got all these different things. But at the center of it all is the deities of the home, which we'll talk about more later. But because everything centers around the deities, the grihastha is actually progressing in their spiritual life. Vanaprasts, they take responsibility because they have experienced householder life so much, many of them at least, or at least experienced the world through brahmacharya life and going out and connecting with people in the material world. They take responsibility by leading society, by giving good counsel, by giving good advice to those who are living in the world. How can they live in the world but also progress spiritually? And their sense of their needs being fulfilled comes actually from simplification. It comes from they've lived a life of opulence, they've lived a life of grihastha, where they've surrounded themselves with material things, and now it's about simplifying their life. Now it's about endeavoring and engaging their mind and consciousness and their surroundings in more focused and more intentional effort in going deeper in their practice, deeper in their service. And then you've got sannyas, where their enjoyment comes purely from everything's in Krishna's hands. Because for them, their enjoyment comes from seeing how Krishna and Krishna's hand is behind everything that happens in their life. They've got no other business. They've got no other sense of enjoyment. You see sannyasis, they're smiling whenever something weird happens. They're smiling because for them, they're just seeing Krishna's arranged it like this. Whereas we'd be like, oh my gosh, anxiety overload. What's happened here? How do we fix this? What do we need to do? But for them, they're just happy. They're just content. And their responsibility comes from enlightening others, comes from being exemplary in their devotion and their surrender to Krishna, and by inspiring a revolution where everybody at least moves the dial 1 degree from material life to spiritual life. That's their sense of responsibility. And actually, and I won't go into the details of this, but I was just interested in the, I can never say the word, etymology of these 4 stages, brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas. And even when you break the words down, it actually has a very spiritual meaning behind them. Brahmacharya is Brahma and Charya. Brahma is absolute truth, supreme person. And Charya means one who is actually cultivating their life around learning. So brahmacharya literally means one whose life revolves around learning about the absolute truth. That's brahmacharya. Grihastha, griha means household, and asta means one who is situated in. And being situated somewhere doesn't mean that you're absorbed in it. It actually means you're placing yourself in that environment for a higher purpose. So grihastha is somebody who's situated in household life, endeavoring for a higher purpose. Then you've got vanaprastha, vana and prastha. Vana means forest, and prastha means one who is walking down that path, or leaving things and moving towards a forest. One who is a householder is walking towards a forest, which means that they're giving their enjoyments up. They're leading a life or moving towards a life of simplicity, of renunciation, moving towards that. Again, a very spiritual meaning. And then sannyas, san ni yas, or nyas, literally means one who is lying down. One who has completely given everything up because they're lying down. Once you go to the forest, you've got your back towards the world because you're trying to move away, But once you've accepted that this is your life now, you just sit, you just lie down. This is now your place of residence. And so you've given everything up. You're just lying down. And so even when we break the words down, we see that there's a lot of there's a spiritual message behind the words of these 4 stages of spiritual life. And of course, when we talk about grihasthas, Srila Prabhupada often talks about grihamedi. What does grihamedi mean? Griha means household again, but medi means one who is centered around household. So grihamedi means one whose life is centered around householder life. And if you extrapolate that, it also means your life is centered around I, me, and mine. Because that's what that's what grihamedi life is. It's not situated in household life with a higher purpose. It's around your life is revolving around all of this stuff. For most people, when we think of I, me, and mine, we think this body, we think, just our family and stuff. But Prabhupada very oftentimes talks about the extended I being the family, the society, the nation. And so one whose life revolves around all these things is actually a grihamedi, regardless of where you're staying. You could be living in a temple being a grihamedi, you could be living at home being a grihamedi, you could be living in the forest being a grihamedi, because it's centered around I, me, and mine. When we look at the world, a lot of the world asks the question, what's in it for me? If you're on books, they're asking, why should I take this book? What's in it for me? And then you go on this whole conversation of, this is what you're going to get out of the book. Generally, we see that that's what the mentality of the world is. And Prabhupada says that actually, he says that it will basically be entangling by the resultant actions. Otherwise, we will be entangled by the resultant actions. If our life revolves around what's in it for me, we're basically in a life revolving around karma. Because karma is what? We're doing something with an expectation of a reaction. But one who is endeavoring in spiritual life, one who recognizes that actually my life is to serve Krishna, their mentality is not about what's in it for me. Their mentality is about what's in it for Krishna. How can I use this situation, this experience, this thing that I'm involved with to serve Krishna? And so that's a key difference. And when we look at examples of Srila Prabhupada, of how he is always focused on what's in it for Krishna, one pastime that really comes to mind is where a group of Mayavadis came to Srila Prabhupada and the devotees. And they came and they were speaking to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada just heard everything. Usually the devotees are recognized or see Srila Prabhupada is chastising the Mayavadis, he's confronting them and calling out their philosophy being wrong, etc. But in this case, he did none of that. And then at the end, the Mayavadis had a box of pamphlets. They gave it to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada picked the box up, took one of the pamphlets out, started reading it, and was like, oh, very nice. He said, very nice to a Mayavadi pamphlet. And all the devotees were like, hang on, Prabhupada would be like throwing these pamphlets away, be like calling them rascals and everything, but he's appreciating these pamphlets. And then something even more incredible happens, is that Prabhupada says to the devotees, keep this box safe. Keep this box of Mayavadi pamphlets safe. And the devotees are just perplexed. How is Srila Prabhupada encouraging us to keep a box of Mayavadi pamphlets? Fast forward a few days, and Sunday Love Feast happens. And at the end of class, when devotees or the people are coming to sit down in class, sit down for prasadam, he tells the devotees, go get that box of pamphlets that we got from the Mayavadis and distribute them. And all the devotees are perplexed again. What the heck is this? Srila Prabhupada, is he now becoming a Mayavadi? Has he now accepted the Mayavad philosophy that is distributing these pamphlets? But they listen. They put the pamphlets down or give them to each of the people who are there. And then Srila Prabhupada says, now serve the prasadam on these pamphlets. He used the pamphlets that was given to him, donated to him, in service of Krishna by using it as plates. If we got that box of pamphlets, at least I speak for myself, I wouldn't know what to do with them. I'd probably throw them away, I'd probably hide them. I'd make sure that nobody in the temple sees me with these pamphlets, because if somebody sees me with these pamphlets, they'll be thinking, is he from a Mayavadi school coming to share all this wisdom and knowledge? But Prabhupada was expert because he understood the principle of Yukta Vairagya. He understood the principle of how to utilize everything in Krishna's service. And where karma is about what's in it for me, akarma is purely about what's in it for Krishna. And devotees like Srila Prabhupada are expert at understanding how to use every situation, everything in Krishna's service in that way. Sometimes we may think that we're living in a temple and everything we're doing is for Krishna. You know, we're surrounded by devotees, we're serving the temple. Some of us may be pujaris, serving the deities on the altar. Some of us may be engaged in direct services. Some of us may be engaged in book distribution, in Harinam. All these things, yes, my life revolves around Krishna. I'm in spiritual consciousness. But what this canto really teaches us is that your activities could be devotional service, but it could be tainted by the mentality we're carrying. And so even if we're living in a spiritual environment or a spiritual atmosphere, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are 100% engaged in devotional service. Activities may be, but our mentality may not be. What's the difference between somebody who is practicing pure devotion and somebody who is practicing mixed devotion? Pure devotion is described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu as Anya Bilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Dinavritam Anunkulyanun Krishnanu Shilanam Bhaktiruttama. Pure devotional service is described as one where there is no material benefit, where one is not endeavoring for the fruit of actions from the scriptures. One is not endeavoring for gaining knowledge or wisdom of any kind other than that which will help one deepen their devotion. But what is one doing instead? One is simply serving Krishna as Krishna desires. And then also we see ahoitakiya pratihata, this idea that devotional service or pure devotion is one which is not mixed with anything and one which is not interrupted by anything. It's causeless and uninterrupted, which means 24/7 pure devotees are engaged in service. But when I speak of myself, and maybe many of us, services we are engaged in are things that we like, things that we're good at, things that are in our nature, things that people appreciate us for. And of course, we know that Krishna is very kind. He accepts what little service we do. But we see that until and unless our devotion is purely for whatever pleases Krishna, we've got some mixed devotion in us. It's not pure devotion. Because there's a mentality of what I'm going to get out of this service, whether it's satisfaction, enjoyment, peace, whatever it may be. And we see that this canto is actually leading us from how to practice devotion which is mixed to devotion which is pure. In the Daksha example, we spoke about how he was practicing devotion which was envious of Shiva. In the Dhruva Maharaj example, we spoke about how his practice was tinged and tainted by the desire to have a kingdom greater than Brahma. And with Prithu Maharaj, what we see is that as a Shaktavesh avatar, he's teaching us how to practice devotion through following the rules and regulations of devotion, through, in this verse, the Varnashram system, how to live in a stable situation such that we can practice devotion and come to a state of purity. Because here in the verse, as it's translated by Srila Prabhupada, it's not just about when one is situated in his occupational duty without motive for material gain. It's when one is situated in his occupational duty, engages in my loving service without motive for material gain. So this idea that when one engages their swadharma, their worldly duties, in such a way that actually, I'm just using the words from the verse actually, in such a way that one is endeavoring in their bhajate, in their practice of bhajan, which is prasidati, which is actually purifying, then one is actually using their material situation to advance in their spiritual life. It's not just about being situated in an ashram, it's about utilizing the ashram to deepen one's bhajan, to deepen one's practice and purification. And we see in the purport, Srila Prabhupada actually makes this point very, very simple, this path very simple. He says that in this material world, in this material world, everyone is engaged in various professional and occupational duties. But the purpose of such activities should be to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No matter what we do in the world, if the intention is not to please Krishna, then the Bhagavatam actually says that's useless labor. But here, Prabhupada is saying that actually we just have to engage whatever we're doing to please Krishna. And then he says, devotional service is very simple and anyone can adopt it. Let one remain what he is, he need only install the deity of the Supreme Lord in his house. He is saying that the path of devotional service is very, very simple. All one has to do is invite the deities home. Nothing else. You just go home, invite your deities home, or invite deities home. That's all you have to do. Simple for the simple, complicated for the complicated. That's spiritual life. All you have to do is invite the deities home. Because when the deities come home, now you can no longer just live a material life of eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Because now you have to recognize that the deities need to be served. The deities need to be woken up. The deities need to be fed. The deities need to, we need to perform arti for the deities. The deities need some kirtan. The deities basically become the center of one's life. Simple for the simple, complicated for the complicated. It all begins with just inviting the deities home. That little service that we start doing, that we start engaging in, then expands and expands, because then we realize that actually, hang on, the deities also need this, the deities also need that, the deities also like this. And so then the whole household of life becomes revolved around deities. Oftentimes we talk about, especially those of us who have come from living outside the temple for a short period of time or a long period of time. Oftentimes we feel that living in the temple is so much more Krishna conscious than living at home. Why? Because living in the temple, the atmosphere, the environment is created to revolve around the deities. you've got the morning program, you've got all the schedule for the artis, you've got the evening program, you've got the classes where you do Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Vishnu Smaranam. You've got all the 9 limbs of bhakti become fully engaged in the programs at the temple. And when such a service is done in an environment, that surcharges the environment and atmosphere to become spiritual. What's the difference between a home and a temple? It is purely the amount of service that's being done for the deities. In a temple, there's more service being done, therefore you feel more spiritual in a temple. At home, to the degree we do service, to the degree the household is engaged in serving Krishna, to that degree the home also feels spiritual. And then I'm sure most, if not all of us, have had experience of going to a dham where you're at home before the flight and you're like, oh my gosh, it's 11 p.m. and I still have my rounds left to do. And you're like struggling to get your rounds done. And then in the dham, it's 11 a.m. and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm chanting extra rounds. What is this? Because in the dham, the entire atmosphere revolves around Krishna. Not just the building you're in, but the entire land is engaged in serving Krishna. Whatever street you go down, Krishna and Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes are being glorified. Whatever location you go to, there'll be some sort of aspect or some sort of artifact that reminds you of Krishna. Whoever you speak to, the first things will be Radhe Radhe or Hare Krishna or some sort of, Jai Chaitanya or whatever it is. Because now you're surrounded by energy that is surcharged with Krishna consciousness. With the temple, there's a bit less, but a temple is also a dham because the center is Krishna. And so what stops us from making the home a dham? What stops us from making a home a temple is purely the amount of service that we're engaging in. And we're always engaged in service. The difference is that sometimes we're engaged in Krishna's service and sometimes we're engaged in Maya's service. But service we must do. And so what can make the home a spiritual place? What can make home a place where one is situated in his occupational duty, engaged in Krishna's loving service without motive for material gain? And what can make that environment one where one can gradually become very satisfied within is the amount or the endeavor to engage in service in whatever environment you're in, because that service in itself will spiritualize the atmosphere. And so it all begins with inviting deities home, by installing the deities, by making them the center of whatever place you're in, whether it's a temple, whether it's a home, whether it's a yoga studio, and then deepening one's service and practice of devotion. Gadam Karan Maharaj would often say that a devotee's home is a bhajan kutir. A bhajan kutir, because what is a bhajan kutir? From the acharyas we understand is their little hut where they perform bhajan, where they perform glorification of the Lord to go deeper in their own sadhana, to go deeper in their own service to Krishna. And that's the aspiration that we have, to make our home a bhajan kutir, a place where our life revolves around deepening our sadhana, our practice. For those who work, that means going, working, earning money to bring back, not for sense gratification, not for material gain, but for loving service to Krishna. And I'll end with the last few lines of Srila Prabhupada's purport, which says, which basically very much talks about how easy it is to get started. In this way, a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra can worship the deity with the results of his honest labor. Regardless of one's occupational duty, one should adopt the devotional means of hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, offering everything to the Lord, and engaging in his service. In this way, one can very easily engage himself in the service of the Lord. When the Lord is pleased with one's service, one's mission in life is fulfilled. And that's what the Varnashram system is for. It's to create a situation of stability for us to then endeavor spiritually. So to end there. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Questions, comments, corrections, reflections, realizations?
Hare Krishna. I was wondering if you can further explain about how Indra messing up the 100 sacrifices, and how killing Indra, he was justified in doing that, but actually Vishnu came and chastised him. I was wondering, is my karma mind, I'm like, nah, I should have, he's getting off easy. He's justified in like punishing Indra, but he's getting chastised. I was wondering if you could explain more. How's that okay?
Yeah, that's a really nice point. This idea that actually the rightful punishment for somebody who is disturbing one's yagna, actually to an extreme level, is punishment of death. When you look at it from one level, this engagement of action and reaction, or this engagement of punishment, or this engagement of confession, is karmic. Because they've done something, you're giving a reaction to their activity. And so, I don't know if it's loud or people can hear it, okay. Because it's based on a reaction, it's actually seeing the situation from a material plane. Can you hear me? Okay. Understood. It's actually based on a material plane. Whereas what Brahma is encouraging Prithu Maharaj to do is, look, Prithu, you're actually a devotee. Being a devotee means that you don't want to engage in material actions and reactions. You want to act from a spiritual platform. And from a spiritual platform, that means that Vishnu, Krishna, the Supreme Lord, will give the reactions to Indra as per what he is worthy of. And we see Indra time and time again makes mistakes. He keeps getting corrected. Krishna keeps forgiving him. But we also see that Indra is creating more and more offenses. And remember, Indra is a post. It's not a person. Indra is a post. And so that person or that living entity who's in that post of Indra is just accumulating karmic reactions such that they don't necessarily automatically go back to Godhead. But if we want to go back to Godhead, we're not looking at what's the reaction that Rishabh should get for the actions he's done towards you. It's rather, what is the spiritual response to Rishabh's actions? I'm using you as an example. I do not believe that you would do anything wrong to Mahamantra. And so on one level you see that it's a difference between material consciousness and spiritual consciousness, where Brahma is encouraging Prithu, you're a devotee, think spiritual. But the other way you can also see it is that Prithu Maharaj was a Shakti Avesha Avatara, who's an empowered incarnation of Vishnu or Krishna. And his role was to showcase what it means to practice devotion in the mode of goodness and then transcend it to the mode of pure goodness. If one comes down to the stage of passion by, he has done this to me, I need to aggress towards the aggressor. That's there in the Bhagavatam actually. One who's an aggressor, I can't remember all the things, but one who poisons you, one who sets fire to the house, one who steals your wife, and different things. Actually, the rightful reaction is to perform some activities. I forget what it is. Is it killing them? Killing them. But we see that the Bhagavatam, the goal of the Bhagavatam is not to showcase how to act in the three modes. The mode of operandi for the Bhagavatam is how to transcend the modes. Even amongst devotee circles, let's be honest. Sometimes devotees do things that we're like, how could they do this to me? How dare they do that? How dare they say that? But we remember that devotees are works in progress. We remember that we're a work in progress, and the fact that we're offended or affected by it shows that we're a work in progress, and that's our work to do. Nobody's going to do our work for us. As the phrase often goes, everybody has to fly their own plane. The fact that a devotee might do something negative to us, that's on them. Krishna will deal with them accordingly. How we respond to it showcases our maturity in bhakti. Do we respond by harming them? Do we respond by equally reacting to them? Or do we respond from a mode of goodness whereby we're thinking, what is Krishna trying to teach me here? What is it that I need to learn? How is it that I should respond so that they can feel Krishna's love through me? And it's not a one-size-fits-all. Of course, there's different ways that you respond to situations, but the key is respond, not react. So, yeah, long-winded explanation, but this idea that Pritha Maharaj, the second being that Pritha Maharaj is showcasing how to respond in the mode of goodness, because you see, he did come down to the mode of passion where, okay, karmically you should die. I want to kill you. But Brahma is showing, no. In the mode of goodness, it also means that you take good counsel. We can't situate ourselves in one platform because we're influenced by the platforms. It's not that we're situated in a platform. Even, I can't remember where it's mentioned. It might have been one of the previous verses we mentioned that a Brahmana is also influenced by the mode of passion and ignorance. Prabhupada mentions it in the purport. A Brahmana technically is situated in the mode of goodness, but they can be influenced by passion and ignorance because they're influenced by the three modes. What does that mean? That means that even if you're a perfect Brahmana, you could be tipped. Something could happen where you then react in the mode of passion or ignorance. But a true Brahmana is one who can take good counsel. They can accept where they went wrong, they can hear it, they can appreciate it, acknowledge it, and then respond from a place of hearing the good counsel. That's how the kingdom actually used to function. The Brahmanas would always take counsel from each other, and the Kshatriya kings would take counsel from qualified Brahmanas. Kshatriyas by nature are mode of passion, but they listen to the Brahmanas who are acting in a mode of goodness and speaking Shastra such that they can lead responsibly. That probably went on a very massive tangent, but I felt inspired to share. Any other questions, comments? Sarabi?
Thank you for the nice class. I just had a comment in relation to Mahamatra's question, because I have practical experience of being in the situation previously many years ago where I was so angry because of being wronged. And this is the message that Ramakana Swami sent me. He who maintains equanimity of mind, instead of becoming miserable in the bad time of his life, learns lesson from there. Thus he transforms even bad time of his life into gold. There could be no good for a person who has a mind full of cravings. If the temperature of the body has gone up due to mental agony, then there is no use of applying sandalwood to the body, from sage to Quran. So this was the advice to in the same way, make me not want justice and not want revenge or justice over the other person to be put in their place, even if they've done the wrong thing. I just wanted to share.
Devotees are not there for justice for ourselves, we're there for justice for Krishna, which is to always please Krishna and bring people to Krishna. Because Krishna is a needy child. a needy boy, a needy king. He just wants everybody with him. And so if we can be instruments of Krishna's love to everyone we meet, then we're serving Krishna.